Hey Cowboy Nation, it is me, your host, Mr.CowboyNicholson, here to give you another video, or my first ever video. And this first ever video is on a hot topic today. The hot topic is, should the Cowboys fire Mike McCarthy? And I think this has always been a controversial topic with Cowboy fans when it comes to tired head coach. I think, to me, the good last head coach was obviously Jimmy Johnson. I think that was by far the last good head coach. Before that, we really haven't had anything that could contribute to where we were today. And I think Mike McCarthy has been obviously under controversy and under fire. And so here today, I have done a ton of research before I obviously talked about this topic. And one of the biggest researches I say is the reasons not to fire him and the reasons to fire him. Now, each of them have equal. There's 4 points for the reason not to fire him and 4 points to the reason to fire him. Now, let's start with the reasons not to fire him. Reason number one, we've only had him for 2 years. I think as much as this year has been very frustrating, I still just don't think we have enough to where we can definitively say, yes, we need to fire him. I think absolutely there has been definitely some iffy things this year, and that will be probably going into the reasons why he should be fired. But I think, to me, there's been not enough to substantially prove that, we need to fire him. As I always say, third time might be the charm, so you never know. His third season, I think, could be the year he could take us to the Super Bowl. But yeah, I just feel like there is not enough time. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, he had improved from the previous record in 2020. By far, this has been a big turnaround this year for the Cowboys. I think a lot of it can say they won't contribute to Mike McCarthy as they more contribute to Dan Quinn definitely transforming that horrible Cowboys defense that was coached by Mike Nolan in 2020. But you got to give credit where credit is due for the head coach, as the head coach is the main prioritize of helping not only establish the locker room, but establishing his game plan for the 2021 season. And from going from 6-10 to 12-5 is a very big turnaround for Dallas. And it should not go unnoticed. That, in your mindset, well, if he did 12-5 this year, could he do better, or could even at least get to the same potential that we did this year in 2022 to 2023? So that could be another reason to contribute to maybe not firing him, as he has proven that he has improved from the previous year that he was first hired. Unlike some other coaches, I feel like Mike McCarthy has full confidence in his staff, unlike some other coaches. I think he has shown so much more confidence and likability in such offensive coordinator as Kellen Moore, and has so much respect for Dan Quinn. And that is very, very, I wouldn't say rare, but it doesn't really show the admiration and respect that some other coaches. I think, for example, of some coaches that don't really show the admiration of their other peers and kind of keeps, I like to say, the power to themselves, are coaches like Matt Patricia and Bill O'Brien, which are two horrible coaches that are prime examples of, instead of letting the ability of other coaches take in to rally and help these guys get better, they kind of keep it to themselves and kind of have the center play calling be themselves. And I'm kind of liking that Mike McCarthy is making it a team effort. And I think it is, at the end of the day, a team effort more than a one-person effort. By far, his reputation is better. Like, his reputation from last year definitely took a jump than 2020, because 2020 had so many rumors in the locker room of how much they really distrusted Mike McCarthy. They didn't really like Mike McCarthy's style, and that, that he is not a good coach. But he definitely, I think, has improved the locker room, has improved his trust with these players. And I think by improving that and by having a much more closer dynamic and relationship with maybe Dak Prescott, giving him another year, he might even take this team to their next level. So I think, seeing him build his reputation from last year, I think is a very, very big reason that I think you might want to maybe consider maybe giving him another year to build it even further and potentially take the team to where he wants to take them. All right, so now we're going to dive into the reasons we should fire him. There is the same amount of reasons we should fire him. And reason number one, lack of discipline. Oh boy. The Cowboys, by far, were the most penalized team this year. They had no discipline at all. And Mike McCarthy clearly not showing to make change when he needs to make change. By a clear example, Connor Williams. Connor Williams was easily, I think, by far the most penalized player on the Cowboys roster. And I still am baffled and don't understand why A, he was a starter, and B, why he couldn't put I think a much more capable player like Connor McGovern at right guard that has proven that he could be a very good blocker. And some of these weird packages of putting Connor McGovern at fullback is very odd to me. So yeah, I just think the discipline of these false start penalties, these encroachment infraction penalties have been killing us this year. There was a time we had a ton of pass interference, which, I mean, some of those you can't prevent. We were, for the most part, better, but man, the offensive discipline definitely goes not only on to the coaches, but it goes specifically on the head coach because you are training these guys to be a lot more disciplined. Mike McCarthy's play calling. Now, play calling has always been kind of like the Cowboys' iffiness. We've had some controversial play callers over the time. Now, I can't particularly say this is all Mike McCarthy. I don't know if he is making the calls. I don't know if Kellen Moore's making the calls, or I don't know I think for the most part, coordinators are supposed to coordinate their position. So, for example, I think Dan Quinn, clearly calls the defensive plays, and I think Kellen Moore calls the offense, but we can't know. I think, him not having that communication to really see an input on certain plays, like especially offensively, since they weren't able to get offensively going. Mike McCarthy, I think I didn't clearly see give any input to Kellen Moore saying, hey, we should try to maybe focus a little bit more on this to get this going. So I think his play calling and his input on play calling, I think, is a more better thing to say. I think is suspect at best. And I think that is one maybe the considerations is that if he's not going to put an input and if he's not going to try to change the game plan to make it to where it will be in the Cowboys' favor, then I just do not think he will last long term. And I think the lack of responsibility. I think that's been very shown in one of these interviews where he kind of on that last play, he takes responsibility, but he doesn't at the same time. He kind of pushes that more on Dak. And I understand that. Dak is responsible at the end of the day to maybe have slide earlier. But the same token, it's on you as the head coach for that last play to talk with the coordinators, and it is responsible to train those players on situational football like that. He really contributed on situations on football, as we tell from Hard Knocks, that he really was banking on mojo plays, on like situational things. And if you're training guys on that, then it's up to you to train Dak saying, hey, if we're on a situation where you barely have time at like 25 seconds, we barely had 16 seconds on the clock, you need to train him to understand that he needs to slide. So yes, it's a responsibility as Dak as a leader to slide earlier, but it's responsible as you as a coach to teach that situation and to teach him how to be better at that as you are teaching them these so-called mojo plays, which is situational football. And number 4, last one that's been the most obvious talked one, clock management. Clock management has been Mike McCarthy's kryptonite. I don't know what is wrong with him. I don't know why he is not... I'm sorry because I'm so stuffled by
how he can't clearly understand clock management. I mean, I remember the one game against the Cardinals. I think he called a timeout that was so unnecessary. We had 3 timeouts and we had the 2-minute warning. He called a timeout before we hit the 2-minute warning. How does that work? You couldn't have let them play at least a down and have a 2-minute warning, and then maybe have one, maybe potentially at least stop them with 3 and out. But he instead to use the timeout, I think, to me, at an unnecessary time. And his clock management had pretty much led to the Cowboys' downfall. I think his lack of ability on situational football is the reason why I think we didn't get the number 1 seed. And by also contributing to the downfall in the playoffs, the 49ers game may have not been the most defining of terrible clock management, but I think by for sure has been a terrible clock management on the last drive. They were doing so far so good until they made a fatal error that lost them the game. And I think when you make a fatal error, and yet again have proven that you cannot manage the clock, that could be a reason why a owner like Jerry Jones is disgruntled and could fire you. So the ultimate conclusion, do I think the Cowboys should fire Mike McCarthy or should at least keep him? And my ultimate feeling is I think Mike McCarthy should give him 1 more year. I think this should be a make or break it year. I think, to me, obviously, he may not be fired, but we are not clearly sure either, because Jerry Jones has made some very disgruntled comments on the Mike McCarthy situation. So we don't quite know if he is going to stay, or Stephen Jones says one thing, but ultimately Stephen Jones is not the head owner. He is the director of player personnel, so, and the CEO. So I don't really see him making that final call. But he's clearly, for sure, on the hot seat. There is no doubt that Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat, and this is how I think this is going to go down. If Mike McCarthy wins the Super Bowl, he keeps his job. But anything less than a conference championship appearance, I think for sure he will be fired, and there will be no doubt about it. I think Jerry is very, very, I think, going to make it very clear to Mike that if you don't get me to a conference championship or even a Super Bowl, you are not going to make the team. And that, I think, to me, should have been the same indication for Jason Garrett when, after that 2018 to 2019 season, he should have been given a clear indication that, hey, this will make or break it year. Like, you either take us to the Super Bowl or you're out. So, what are your thoughts, guys? I really want to hear your comments down below. Should we keep Mike McCarthy? Should we fire him? I have seen a lot more Cowboy fans going more wanting to fire him, and I don't blame for those people that want it. I still am on the fence with it. I still think that, yes, as much as there are negatives to him, there are positives, and we should at least give him another year to prove his shot to maybe getting us a Lombardi trophy. But anyway, Cowboy fans, leave your comments down below if you like this video. Hit that like button. And if you want to subscribe for more Dallas Cowboys talks and news, then please hit that subscribe button. And this is Mr. Cowboy Nicholson signing out. Peace.